We're going to, you'll get an envelope and you'll put them in the envelope and then glue the envelope in. It's all really, really nice. Very exciting stuff here. All right, you're going to find adjacent angles. So find that one. For some reason, when I reprinted them, I know some of your fonts, they don't look the same, but they're the same thing, I know. So if yours isn't as bold as this, that's okay. We'll live. All right, so adjacent. What does it mean if two things are adjacent to each other? Do we know that word, adjacent? If you're adjacent to someone? Kind of means like you're next to them. So adjacent, if we're talking about adjacent rooms to this room, adjacent would be the person next to me that way. Does anyone know whose room that is over there?
That old man.
That old man. Mr. Tyson. And then this way is Miss Lydia or Miss Glenn. Yep, good. So adjacent means that we have angles that are next to each other. So we're going to flip that over. We're going to color code this a little bit. So angles that are next to, let's underline that word next to at the bottom. That's the way I like to think about it. That's my initial, like if somebody asked me what adjacent angles are, I'd say this. Okay. This is our really like academic word of it. So it's two angles that have a common vertex and a common side. Okay, so they're meeting together in the middle, and then they have a common side between them working through. So as we take a look at this, one angle would be F to M. And then where would we be going after M? I'm going to do a small angle, so we're going to P. So this is one angle here that we're looking at for the adjacent angles, FMP. In angle FMP, what is our vertex? M, good. So when we have the other angle, we need M to continue to be the vertex. And then we want them to share a side. It's almost like they're next door to each other. So what would be our angle that's next door to FMP? P. Yeah, good. TMP or PMT, yeah. Good, so we're seeing that they have that overlapping, that MP side, they share, there's both brown and blue that I use, that's in that spot there. So it's like they're next to each other, there's maybe a wall between them, but their rooms live next to each other. Does that make sense? A little bit? Next to? We're feeling good? Okay. We're going to then go to vertical angles. So find yours that say vertical angles. All right, vertical angles. When you think vertical, what does that word vertical mean? Up and down, good. Where horizontal is side to side. So vertical is up and down. And that's kind of the same idea as vertical angles, but we're going to think of the word across. So kind of up and down, kind of across. So we're going to flip this one over, vertical angles. Are angles that are across from each other. We're going to underline that word across. Angles across from each other when two lines intersect. So we're on vertical angles if you haven't found that card yet. My body. There you go. So find vertical angles. And we're underlining that word across. Angles across from each other when two lines intersect. Okay, so as I take a look at my angles, there's two pairs of vertical angles. Okay, one can be this bottom one, and what would match the bottom one? What would be across from that one? The top, right? Or it can be the one from side to side. Okay, as I look at the angles, I'm going to do the side-to-side one here just to remind us it doesn't always have to be top and bottom. But when you outline those angles, what part do both those angles share? The middle, and what do we call that middle? Vertex. So if you outline the angles, it's almost like it's a V and a V, and the V's touch at their middle point. So that's how some people remember it as vertical angles. They like view it as the actual letter V. See how it's a V? And then if you flip it, there's the V. And then the V's are touching in the middle. Okay, some people think of it like that. You don't have to do that. Okay, but vertical angles are across from each other, so either left and right or up and down. Or, I don't know, sometimes it's like they're diagonal, so, but they're always across from each other. Keeps like auto-correcting to not seeing that shade, but it's shaded. All right, does anyone remember yesterday when we have these little arcs drawn on there? What does that mean? Good, they're equal. So these two are equal. Those are vertical angles. Is it equal to this one with the little arcs? No, why not? This one has an arc and this one has an arc. Why don't they match? Good, you count how many there are. So the ones with ones match, and then the ones with two match. So these ones match each other, these ones match each other. Very nice, Jose. Okay, so congruent means that they are equal. If you want to write that word there, just remind ourselves that congruent word is maybe still new to us. And then let's draw that congruent symbol, that we have that equal sign with a little squiggle. How are we feeling? Good? All right, we're going to go to linear pair. So find that linear pair. All right, in a linear pair, when we look at that word linear, what does that word linear tell us? Line, good. So if you want to underline that word line in the front there, line. That's what we're really thinking of here, is that we have a line that we're dealing with. And pair usually means how many? Two. But even though we have a linear pair with two, it's not that we have two lines. It's that we have two angles that make a line. Okay, so as I flip this over, it's a pair of adjacent angles, so angles next to each other, that create a straight line. So I'm going to just kind of underline or squiggle underneath that word adjacent angles. I'm going to pull out that card again for my adjacent angles. So remember, adjacent angles means ones that are next to each other. So as I look at this one, we have angle 4. Remember, we can also just use numbers. And what's the other angle called? 6. So do these angles, are they like right next door to each other? Yes. They're sharing a wall. They share that ray going in the middle there. But when we put them together, if I take away that wall, what's created? A line. So that's what creates that straight line together, is we're thinking about they're next to each other. If we knock down the wall that's separating the rooms, it's now creating a straight line. Okay? And when we talk about a straight line, how many degrees is a straight line? Does anyone remember? 180. Good. So as I go from one side to the other side, all the way across, that's our 180 degrees. Whoops. And we were probably supposed to do the word supplementary before we did this one, but that's okay. And they're always supplementary. So supplementary means that they're going to add up to equal. Together they have to make how much? 180. Okay. All I like to do my little shading here, saying that when I add that blue angle plus my brown angle, it equals 180. All right, so let's go to supplementary since this one ended in supplementary. So supplementary we have means that we have two angles that add up to 180. That's all it means. We just have two angles that add up to 180. So there's a couple ways that this can look when we talk about that. So if you flip it over, two angles that have measures that add up to 180. Okay, if you want to box that 180 or circle it, something that 180 is the really important part of this key. So supplementary angles don't have to be next to each other. They can be next to each other. If they are next to each other, they make a straight line. If they're not next to each other, that's okay. Do these angles still add up to 180? Yeah, what's 125 plus 55? If you're not sure, use calculator quick. 125 plus 55. Yep, 180. So those two angles, even though they're not touching, they're still supplementary because they add up to 180. In this one, when I add them together, they create that straight line all the way across. Yep, that was a straight line that I just drew. Perfect, crushing it. And how many degrees is a straight line always? 180. So if we have those adjacent angles making a straight line, that's really a linear pair. We can even be more specific, but they're also supplementary. All right, next one we're going to do is complementary. Oops, that's my other one from last year. My goodness. Complementary. So supplementary and complementary kind of go together. They're a little bit same, a little bit different. Supplementary means that they add up to 180. If you ever have supplementary materials, like for a course or for a class, that means that it's added materials to make the course whole. Complementary, complement means like the other part almost. If you think about like your complements in art, they're kind of across that color wheel. Okay, so this time, two angles that have measures adding up to 90 degrees. So 90 is our key number on this one. Okay, 90 degrees. And this isn't technically correct because if you think of the word compliment, like if you compliment someone, it's not spelled the same, but that's how I remembered it. That's how I was taught to remember it when I was growing up, is that it's always right to give compliments. And a right angle is 90 degrees. So it's always right to give compliments. So complimentary is 90 degrees. That's how I was taught. I don't know. Don't love it, but it's fine. So again, these can be angles that are adjacent to each other. See how these two are next to each other? We're sharing that wall. If we knock down the wall between the rooms, it creates a right angle, and we see that with that box. That box tells us that. So if you want to like darken that box, shade that in, show that that's how we knew it was complementary, is because of that box. Okay, otherwise if they're not touching, they're not adjacent to each other, they don't share that wall, we have to actually just add together their amounts. So what is 76 plus 14? You sure? Yeah. 6 plus 4 is 10. Carry that 1. 7, 8, 9, 90. Beautiful. You guys are doing great. All right, one last card, and then we do have a couple examples to do. Okay, last card we're going to do is perpendicular. Perpendicular gets paired with, what's the other word that you kind of think of with perpendicular? Or maybe you don't think of. I think of. When we talk about perpendicular lines, we also usually talk about parallel lines. So perpendicular, parallel kind of go together. Parallel means two lines that next to each other and they never actually touch. Perpendicular means that they intersect, but specifically they intersect at 90 degrees. So again, if you want to underline that, circle it, highlight it. For some reason, I'm going to use a colored pencil on this one. So when I look at this diagram here, I see this little box here. Remember, that box tells us how much. That tells us it's 90 degrees. That's our symbol for 90 degrees. So if I think about this, there's a couple ways we can figure out all the other angles. I know that if I have an adjacent angle here, these two are going to make this a line. And a line is how many degrees? 180. So 90 and what make 180? 90. Because they're a linear pair. And then we could continue to just cover up and keep doing that. If this is 90, then this is 90. Or we could even think of our vertical angles that are across from each other. When I go top to bottom here, remember, opposite angles are congruent across. So 90 degrees on top means 90 degrees on bottom. So these are all 90 degree angles. If we know that one angle is 90 degrees, we know all four are going to be right angles. Okay, that box is our indication for that 90. All right, last one part on this one here is this is our symbol to say perpendicular. So LT only has this above it. What does that part mean? That, I don't know. Segment, good. So LT is a segment. It starts at L, it ends at T. And then what's this one? Line. Good, line KP. It goes through KP. This middle symbol here stands for, it's like an upside down T. That stands for saying is perpendicular to. So if we're going to say this out loud, we would say segment LT is perpendicular to line KP. If we want to add that in of how we say that, we wouldn't say segment LT upside down T line KP. Say segment LT is perpendicular to line KP. All right, great. We're going to set your cards aside for a moment. We're going to pull out your notes. We're not gluing in these cards. Do not glue in these cards. Don't do it. Because you need both sides of the cards. They're flashcards. That's not how flashcards work. All right. In your notes, this is our last lesson of Chapter 1. So this is 1-5, angle relationships. One-five angle relationships. You are going to get a glue in. So for your glue in, you're just gluing it in at the top here. Do not glue your cards. We're not gluing your cards. Don't do it. It won't be helpful. Okay, so you're going to gluing this in at the top of that page. Alright, so go ahead and get that glued in. We're going to just do a couple of these examples. Make sure that we can visually see where these things are. Just practice naming some angles. Alright, this you're going to probably want to take out your colored pencils again. We're going to have lots of colored pencils this time. So make sure those are accessible to everyone, if especially you like to color code, because we're going to be naming these angles down below. Alright, we're going to start with vertical angles. So once you get that glued in, find your vertical angles card. Find your vertical angles card after this. Okay, so vertical angles. We're just going to go through and do one example of each of these on this picture. So we'll need, I don't know, I don't think we have 6 colors, so I think we only have 5, so we'll figure it out when we get there. Alright, vertical angles. So where do we see two angles that are across from each other, that create those congruent parts that are across either side to side or up and down? C and D. We could do that one. This one on top, is that CBD? Is that what you're talking about? That angle, and the one below. That would work, but we don't know the angle below because there's no points there. What about over on this one here? Which angles could we say are across from each other over here? We would do IF. IFG would be a straight line. I want to do like an angle. IFH we could. And what angle would be like across from IFH? EF. G, yeah, good. The only point they share is that middle point, that point in the middle. So if we wanted to, we could even put in those little congruent symbols, those little arcs, saying that those are congruent. So our vertical angles here, we have angle, we said it was IFH. I'm going to just do a little and symbol. If you want to write out the word and, you can. This is my little and when it's a loop-de-loop. I don't know. It's not a very good and symbol. And angle. What was the other name? EFG. Good. Whenever we do vertical angles, they should always share that middle letter, that F. That vertex. Good. All right, let's find adjacent angles. So adjacent angles, we're going to be looking for angles that are next to each other. We have a common point in between. Can you say that again, Camille? No? Okay. So let's pick that CBD. That's one that Camille picked earlier. CBD. Yeah, we could put it with ABC, or we could put it with DBE, either side. So we have angle CBD is one of them. And do you guys want to go ABC or DBE? ABC, cool. All right, let's name a complementary pair. Complementary angles next. So complementary angles means that we have angles that make 90 degrees. And we don't know any of the actual amounts, the actual degrees. Nothing says the amount of degrees things are. So we're going to be looking for those adjacent angles that are together, they're touching, and they make that 90-degree angle. So that ABC is the 90-degree there, but is that two angles? No. But we know if it's 90 degrees on this side, it's 90 degrees on the other side. So we can put even a 90-degree angle on this side here. So if I have 90 degrees here, that's where I'm looking, is just these two angles. We already named one of them, CBD. But what's the angle next to it that creates the 90-degree angle? DBE. And I'm just color coding, so if you are using different colors than me, that's fine. I'm just outlining it in that one color. And then when I write it, I'm just highlighting it in that color. If the color coding is too much, it's okay not to do that, but at this point we're still learning how to name those angles, so it's kind of nice to be able to visually see where they go. It's your choice, your notes. You can use your notes on the test, which is on Tuesday. All right, two more. We got supplementary. Supplementary. All right, supplementary, remember, means how many? When you add them together? 180. So two angles that make 180. And again, this one we're actually going to be again looking for the angles that are adjacent for each other. We don't have any of those angles with the numbers. So let's go back to one that we already did, EFG. what angle would be supplementary to angle EFG? There's actually two answers here. We could do GFH. That would make that straight line going across these two together. What would be another answer to supplementary to EFG? EFI. So smart. EFI. We could also follow that line. Which one makes more sense to you? Do we want to follow this line, the diagonal line, or would you rather just follow the line going across? Anyone have an opinion? Cool. Then we're going to go with the other one, EFI. That's the one people usually don't say. That's fun. Angle EFI. All right, last one. Oh, sorry, we have two more. Last one with angles is a linear pair. So remember, linear pair just means we have a line and two angles that add up to that line together. Is the supplementary angles that we named, are those also a linear pair? Is this blue and this brown one, did they make a line going across? Yeah, they did. But let's just for fun, let's name a different one. Okay, we're going to start with angle DBE. Angle DBE. Which we already colored. So if your coloring is different than mine, that's okay, but locate your DBE. My DBE I colored in green. So I'm going to just highlight that and get in green. We already colored it. Now this one's a little trickier. We're looking for that line, a linear pair. So when I look at DBE, that's this one here, DBE. And I want to think about making a straight line across. Because they're adjacent, I know I have to pick up kind of where this one left off. So do I want to start at E or do I want to start at D? That would be going the other direction. I want to go make a line going like this way. You're on the right track. We're going to go D. We're going to have to fill in this part of this line. Because we're missing, we have this one. But to finish that line, we need to open that a little bit longer. It's almost like opening a whole door. How could we swing it open? So we're going to start at D. Then we'll go to B. But instead of going up to C, to finish that straight line across, we're going to go to A. Good. Because then that straight line is from E to A as we connect those, E to A. All right, last one is perpendicular. So perpendicular, we're looking for that 90-degree angle. Which we drew one 90-degree angle, and then there was one that already drawn for us. So how could we name those lines that have that perpendicular? What's one of those lines? If I look at that 90 degrees here. If I want to name this line going across horizontal, how could I name that line? Good. How many points do we need for a line? That's for an angle. Angle we need 3. A line we only need 2. So let's name it, maybe name it AH or we could do AE, or you could do BH. That's fine too. Any of those 2 points on that line. I'm going to just go with AF. I don't know. I just picked 2. How are you doing?
Here's your name.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Happy day. All right. So we have AF, and then we're going to do that upside down capital T. Yes, I did get mail. She delivers, yeah, they deliver my mail every day for me. It's very nice. All right, and then what is AF? What's that perpendicular to? What's the other line that's crossing at that 90 degrees? So one is this way, going A to F, and the other line is, good, C to, yeah, we can just say B, because it's a line, it goes through B. So we'll say perpendicular to the line CB. All right, what's going to happen right now, I'm going to pass out envelopes. I'm going to show you how this is going to work. With your envelope, you're going to end up gluing your envelope into your notebook. You are not sealing your envelope. Do not seal it. Okay, you have to get into it. You're going to put your cards into your envelope. And then the part you glue is like the front of the envelope you'll glue, and then you glue that in, so then it's right there, and you can get into it. You can pull out your cards when you need to. Does that make sense? Okay? All right. And then there is a practice in Schoology. I know we're running short on time. So finish that during Eagle time. Sign up for an Eagle appointment if you need to. Next week we're going to do, on Monday we'll do our one-pager, and then Tuesday we have our test. I know it feels like it's fast, but that's because chapter 2 is crucial. So you're gluing the front of the envelope down, and then you're putting the cards in the envelope. When you do this practice, it's going to be helpful to probably just take out all the cards and have them laying out, so that way that you can just look at them. You're going to do a lot of matching.